Hello and welcome to ABP Live. I have with me today the High Commissioner of Australia to India, Barry O'Farrell. Welcome to ABP Live, sir, and thank you for talking to us.
Always good to be talking to you.
Thank you. So, High Commissioner, the obvious question will be, we are all waiting for the big visit. Prime Minister will be coming here in March, and we get to hear probably it will be early March. But what is it that we are expecting in terms of the deliverables? Will it be taking the comprehensive strategic partnership to the next level? What do you have to say to that?
Well, it's not for me, it's for Prime Ministers to unveil what they will agree at those meetings. But look, this is going to be another great year for the Australia-India relationship, one where I'm very certain we'll see even further growth in what has been remarkable growth over the last 3 years. And so I think firstly, they will talk about trade. We succeeded in having a combined trade deal last year between the two countries. Minister Goyal and the Trade Minister of Australia, Minister Farrell, are seeking to deliver a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement this year. So that means a deepening of trade and investment, and also looking at some of the new areas like digital trade and the like, where we can further enhance the B2B links between Australia and India. Strategically, we haven't been stronger. Last year we had the chiefs of all of our defence forces visit India. There's been more and more activities across all three defence forces between our two countries, and of course later in the year Australia will host the Quad Summit. So at a diplomatic level, at a strategic level, at an economic level, and at a people-to-people level, we're seeing enormous growth. And what Prime Ministers do when they meet is seek to further inject ambition into a relationship, and I think that's a good thing for both citizens of India and for citizens of Australia.
Now, coming to trade, as you rightly said, High Commissioner, that we saw the first part getting signed after a lot of struggle, but then end of the day we have the deal right now. But then coming to the most important part, the second part, which we can finally close the entire deal, do you think those negotiations will take time?
Well, negotiations always take time, but if there is political will, as there was last year and as there is this year, it makes it much more likely that we're going to get an outcome within the timetable that has been set. So as of the 29th of December last year, 96% of goods and services sent from India to Australia go through without any tariffs. Okay. That rises to 100% over 3 years. We hope to further deepen trade, goods and services trade between the two countries in terms of those changes. We want to look to new areas like digital trade and two-way investment in each other's countries. And then there are areas like renewable and climate change, where we think there are also opportunities to inject those into a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement. Interestingly, a couple of things aren't always apparent with last year's deal. Firstly, of course, it also provided a boost to India's tech companies by reducing double taxation. Okay. And of course, your tech companies help service the world's economy, and particularly in Australia. And secondly, there was a people-to-people element, which saw the introduction of 5-year visas, the offer within 2 years of young Indians being able to undertake tourist work visas to Australia, and for those students in Australia, for a first time ever in a free trade deal signed by Australia, there were guaranteed post-study work rights to ensure that when those students who have studied in Australia come back to India, they do so with some working experience as well. So, you know, we've been ambitious, we've been novel, we've been direct, and I would expect that in March, when our two Prime Ministers meet, we'll see more of that practicality, because both Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Albanese are focused on deliverables. They're not focused on words across the sky. They want to advance the relationship for the benefit of their citizens in India and in Australia.
That's interesting. And also, High Commissioner, talking about digital trade. Now, India recently took a sort of quantum leap with the US by going for critical technologies, especially in the area of artificial intelligence. Now, US, India, Australia, and of course Japan, we are all part of the Quad. Is that going to help the India-Australia digitrade also?
Absolutely, and the Quad, of course, is very focused on on the new critical and cyber technologies. And these are technologies that, as every citizen knows, help us to run our lives these days. But they're also regrettably technologies that come with great harm if not properly regulated. So only a fortnight ago, the Secretary of the Australian Department of Home Affairs was here talking within the Quad, but also to the Indian system, about how we can cooperate further to try and ensure that citizens using those amazing technologies do so securely, safely and free of the sorts of coercion and other negatives that we saw arise during COVID. It is a growing area for us, and it's a growing area also because often people mistakenly believe that the only resource available in Australia is coal, whether it's coking coal or whether it's thermal coal for power stations. We of course also have significant quantum of critical minerals and rare earths. These are the lithiums, the cobalts, the vanadium and others that our technology, whether phones, whether iPads, whether computers, rely upon. And we offer to India and to the world a trusted supplier, and we're looking to ensure we have secure supply chains in place. We within the Quad are looking to supply both Japan, India and the United States with those products, because all of those countries have strong technology bases, and it's in our interest to provide them with secure supplies of this equipment so that we can ensure their economies grow.
So this is going to be, of course, a priority area within the Quad as well, it seems.
It is a priority area within the Quad, and of course within the Japan, India, Australia trilateral relationship, we're also committed to resilient supply chains. And I think the first evidence of that in practice is likely to be critical minerals, because both Japan and India want to purchase Australian critical minerals, and it provides a great testing ground of how we deliver secure, resilient supply chains.
Now, High Commissioner, coming to the big factor on which a lot of Indian observers were also watching was the visit of your foreign minister to China. Do you think the China challenge is primarily why India and Australia also got strategically much closer? That's what experts say. Now, is it still a challenge for you? Are you trying to change the equation? Things are getting better between Australia and China?
I personally think that India and Australia would have continued to have headed in the same direction as we are now, regardless of what our experience has been with China over the last 3 years. India knows that Australia stands for its national interests, and in relation to China, Australia believes it's in our best interest to have a dialogue with China. That's a similar approach to India's approach to the world. But we will agree where we can, we'll disagree where we must, but as India has learned, we will always be guided by what is best for Australia, what is best for our national interests, what is best for our citizens. And there are many things that China previously bought from Australia that for reasons of its own decision decided not to continue to buy. We found other markets. We're a trading nation. We're happily doing more and more trade with India. We believe dialogue with everyone is important and good for the world, but we're not going to have dialogue that affects either our national interest or our view of the region. And also talking about joint exercises between India and Australia, do you think that that is probably going to increase? We are having across the board joint military exercises, but within Quad and even outside Quad, I mean with the Malabar, and I believe Talisman Sabre will also start soon. What do you have to say to that? We're having more and more joint exercises. We're joining each other's exercises with greater frequency, and those exercises are becoming more complex. And the benefit of that is that it provides the countries that are involved with a greater understanding of the way in which the other systems operate. And that can, yes, be important when there are strategic challenges, but remember it's also important when, as we see from time to time, there are humanitarian and disaster relief requirements. The Quad was born out of the tsunami. And the governments believed that they could do better next time. And the more we cooperate, the more we know each other's systems, the more efficient we can become the next time there is a disaster somewhere across the Indo-Pacific that we're called to assist with.
And also, High Commissioner, the fact that India and Australia started a 2+2 dialogue as well, are we going to see that happening this year also? And in terms of defence and security partnership, what's next?
Well, I think what's next is just continued cooperation, continued reciprocity, continued joint exercises. You know, what we've seen in the last 12 months is our Indian P-8 submarine serial aircraft operating out of Australian bases, and equally Australian flights here in India. So that's the sort of example that we're seeing. But across the three services, we're seeing greater and greater cooperation, and defence will remain a strong pillar of the Australian-India relationship.
And now we are going to soon probably head for a year of the Russia-Ukraine war. How do you analyse that, and do you think this is going to get worsen as things move forward?
Well, I'm not a commentator, but Australia opposes Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It offends principles of sovereignty. It's contrary to the Charter of the United Nations, and we continue to urge that it be ended, and we continue to support Ukraine with $65 million worth of humanitarian assistance. It clearly is a challenge for the world, but the fact is that the only world leader who has told President Putin that this should end is Prime Minister Modi, and he deserves credit for that.
Well taken. And also, High Commissioner, of late we've seen certain incidents coming up that has disturbed the bilateral ties, I would say, not really bilateral ties, but the people-to-people connections, is with this vandalization of temples and the Khalistan issue that continues to bother India. I know several Australian leaders, including yourself, you've also spoken against it, but are you taking any actions against them?
Well, firstly, we condemn protests that allow people to express their democratic rights that turn violent. We condemn attacks on and vandalism on any places of worship, whether they're temples, whether they're mosques, whether they're churches. And I'm delighted that in Victoria, where these incidents have occurred, police have increased their surveillance of Hindu temples, that on the day of the protest, police were there in numbers. They arrested at least 2 of the people that were undertaking criminal activities, and others are being investigated. So the response was good, the planning was strong, but regrettably we saw what I think is a black mark upon those that have come to Australia, like the rest of the Indian diaspora, to seek opportunity and to benefit from those opportunities and benefits that Australia is able to provide. I've condemned it. It's been condemned from the highest levels in Australia, but the fact is that in any multicultural, multi-faith society which is democratic, we need to balance the rights of people to express their opinions with a complete condemnation of those who seek to coerce or those who seek to engage in criminal and violent protest.
And my last question to you, High Commissioner, because that is another aspect of India-Australia relationship, is the cricket. Now, I believe, I was reading the Australian media for last 2 days, and it seems there's a controversy going on. How do you see that? Is it going to, you think, hamper the series?
I think this will be another terrific series between India and Australia. I'm hoping that Australia will win. We didn't have a particularly good start to the first test, but I'm still confident that come the end of the series we'll narrowly defeat India. But look, what matters is what happens on the pitch whilst the innings are underway. What media do, with all due respect to a respected journalist, is they look for ways in advance of matches to engage in commentary. Why would India doctor pitches in India now that it is both a fast bowling and spin bowling nation? Once upon a time when India was specialists at spin bowling and weren't very good at fast bowling, I understand it, but it doesn't make any sense today. So I'm confident that what we will see is what Prime Minister Modi described last year after India won the series, which is we'll have formidable opponents in both teams on the arena, but we will continue to be solid partners both in cricket and in the rest of the relationship off the arena.
Well, thank you so much, High Commissioner, for talking to us. That was High Commissioner of Australia to India, Barry O'Farrell, and he was talking to ABP Live. For ABP Live, this is Nayanima Basu.